Shalom. Hey, long time no see. Haven't been on a live stream probably in months. And this time of the year, it becomes quite a challenge for us off-gridders because the lighting. This is not, I don't have a filter or color or anything on there. It is totally from lamps that are lighting this evening's live stream. I was just relaxing because the Shabbat is almost over, and just laying there and realized, hey, thanks for the thumbs up. Brother Chris is not doing a live stream tonight. I don't think Bear's doing a live stream tonight. I don't think other preppers like Wes S are doing a live stream tonight. And so I thought, what the heck? Let me check back in. Let me welcome new subscribers, because I've had a lot of new subscribers on my channel probably since the last time I did a live stream. Welcome. I've already had to ban some people on my channel because they get on there and they get argumentative and they want to tell me I'm wrong about things, and they want to challenge my belief system and so on. And so I've already had to ban a couple of people. I don't really want to, but I don't have a lot of choice in that matter. Let me just say hello to whoever has shown up so far, because it should be, oh, there's Paul from Eastern Long Island. Man, you're a long way away. I just watched very recently a series on serial murders there at Jones Beach. And I know they've been in the news before, like this is not a new thing, but I actually went there when I was a kid. My mom was from that area and we used to go to Jones Beach. It's kind of creepy to think about. There were bodies buried along there, and there's Bitty Boo. Hey, Bitty Boo, I haven't really been able to sit in on your live streams either because you're a night owl and sometimes you're on at 2 in the morning, but I would like to hear how you're doing and how your grandson Cameron's doing. And there's Dusty Sanders, and there's Emilia, Salt and Lake Gypsy, Shalom from the East Coast. Salt and Lake Gypsy, what do you hear about Loudoun County and all the craziness going on out there? And there's a Whiskey for Oscar Whiskey. Sent me a pretty good reel. Was it a reel? On Instagram today? What was that about? Whiskey? It's actually a pretty good one. Can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe you remember. And there's someone from PG Ginger. That's not Grandma Ginger's farm, right? You're from Pennsylvania. Over there in a little house on the mountain country. We're both doing great. He may come home before Christmas. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And you're feeling better. Your breathing and everything is recovering there a bit. The chicken bird trap. That's right. Seems kind of like a duh, right? I mean, traps are traps, but I liked it. I thought it was kind of interesting. Now, it's the guy's video and he's promoting the idea. So, of course, right, you want to present your best side. And he's got that pigeon sitting there and he's trying to intimate that you could catch a pigeon. You absolutely could if you had pigeons in your area. But I think a lot of people are just as likely to get some squirrel in there and then it's going to tear it up or try to hop out or something. I'm already getting warm. Nervous. I'm nervous. I haven't been live in a long time. But no, it was kind of a cool video and I liked the mechanical aspect of it. Cam weighs 3 pounds and 15 ounces. Well, hallelujah, that's more than he did, but let's get some more weight on that little feller. I know he will grow. I know he will grow. All right, so let's see. Really loved your last video. Legacy. The thing that was really interesting about that video, and I did not find out until after I had shot it, that Pastor Joe's video for the day, I think it might have been a Patreon video, covered very similar topics. And then he told me that Bear did a video that day about legacy too. So there you go. The Holy Spirit moves and and so you wind up with videos that are interlaced, and none of us planned it. I mean, even though Pastor and I are married, we don't sit down and talk about the videos we're doing at the time. His is totally on inspiration and Holy Spirit and so on. And so I don't even get the pre-plan. And he very seldom is there when I'm doing mine too. Oftentimes I walk down to the orchard, or I'm outside on the land, which is, where I'm comfortable and where I like being. And so that one just kind of hit me. So thank you very much. I thought it was kind of important. And there's Mrs. Lovely Dudley. Oh, and she noticed it. So see, you know that I'm not just making that up either, because she watches all the channels. Any thoughts about global events going on? I'm not quite the global event expert that my husband is, but I am kind of concerned about Australia and the draconian measures they're using on their own populace. Pastor told me about how there were some Aborigines, 3 of them in a tribe or a unit, and the government put them all in a concentration camp. And I just watched a little bit of a video where the medical guy and the police guy were telling a woman whose house was near the camp that she's not even allowed to get off of her own porch, even though there's a house closer to the fence and people at that house come out of their house. She's like, doesn't make any sense that you're making me stay on my own porch when their house is literally right up against that fence and they can come in and out. And so it seems kind of crazy. And I think I can give a little perspective because I've been alive for a while, and so I've seen, how our world has changed and our country has changed. And when I say it's a little crazy, it's a little crazy. I mean, the last time we saw concentration camps in any number was World War II, which was what, 70 years ago or something like that? So let me see. Mike Goodwrench 1. Hello, Sister Kate. I lived in New York for the first 42 years of my life, and now I'm living in the free state of Texas for the last 10. I remember the Jones Beach serial murder case. Yeah, it's kind of creepy to think about that because, I mean, that definitely was a family beach. When my mom would take us there would be families there. And the series I watched, it was a gated community and a doctor who ran it, and he had video and he didn't turn it over to the police, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. Texas. So Texas is like the only state in the whole continental US. There's Aid. Hey, Aid. I was just talking about Texas. You should make some comments there, because I don't think it's a secret. He's been on Wes's live streams and so on. He's a Brit who came over to the US, and he has said, I've had it from a very good source, that 2 of the beers in Texas he was kind of happily surprised about. You can go ahead and name them yourself if you want, Aid. I think Shinerbach was one. But also Texas was and still is a state that has in its state constitution the right to withdraw from the Union if they want to. Yep, we're from Poland and lost some family to those camps. Hits close to home seeing that. Yeah, it's kind of weird, and it's been something for the United States in the prepping world. People kept saying that. I mean, for years, people have been saying, "Oh, the UN is going to set up concentration camps for America." Oh, there's Lone Star living. Shalom. You're in Texas too, aren't you? Lone Star beer is good. There you go. I think British beer is really good. I like their bitters, and lemon and lime. No, not lemon and lime. Is it lemon and lime? Is it ale and lemon? Something like that. Lime. It's a lime syrup kind of thing that they put in the beer, and it's actually a really nice little combination. And those are my favorite beers. Aiden West will be here hopefully Monday night. Yeah, they're going to have a road trip. I just watched a small amount of a 2-hour live stream. Y'all, it's a lot to watch, waiting for little bits of information. Y'all talking about the greatest country in the world? Yeah, I was just about to say Texas is still a huge state, with a lot of state identity. Very proud to be Texans, and yet people we know who are there are saying influx of Californians and so on, and Austin is a very liberal bastion and so on. But your governor seems to be of the right mindset for the whole vaccination mask thing, and his border, and how he's just gonna, as a state, decide we are gonna secure our own border if the U.S. government won't do that job. I was trying to explain what bitter and mild to Wes last night. Right? I mean, to an American, bitter means your beer's going to taste like horseradish. But to a bitter beer, or bitter's beer, it was one of the smoothest beers I ever drank. I really liked it. We says Texas hospitality is excellent. Well, good. That's a good thing. They need to be representing. Have you had any Tex-Mex kind of food too, authentic food? And did you try out the fish and chips near you near Wes? Because I know he said he had a British restaurant in the area. Yeah, so we had a question from y'all. I kind of said I don't know that much about it, but I was kind of concerned about Australia, and I follow a channel called Homestead Oz. Oh, wait a minute. I had a bitter can be fine beer. Homestead Oz hasn't posted a video in about 2 weeks, and I sometimes get private messages from them, and I'm a little concerned about them. It's kind of dark there. Exactly right. It's kind of a little strange there in Australia. And that's why I'm kind of concerned for them, because I thought I remembered her saying that they might be censored, that they might not be able to put videos out. And that, at least during one of the prior vaccination mandates, they were told they couldn't leave their farm, and they might have to house people on their farm that were coming from other areas, and it wasn't up to them. Like, they were going to be told, you're going to have it. It used to be a penal state. Well, yeah, it started out as a penal state for British prisoners in the 1800s. Petty criminals, like someone who steals a brush, from a barber shop and things, they would send them all the way out to Australia because they just had so much petty crime, and they ran out of room in their jails. The British restaurant is in Dallas. I haven't been there yet, but I've tried some real Mexican food, and it's pretty good. Well, I'm glad it's pretty good. I mean, it is a sort of an acquired taste. I think it's pretty tasty. I have a few favorite restaurants around here, but if you talk to, a Mexican, they'd probably say, it's kind of bland. It's not exactly what we eat. Hey, you do what you can do. Hey, Sue says, come to think of it, I really haven't seen much from a straight gardening channel from there. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the other channel I was starting to watch. It was a young woman, and she was working on her doctorate, and she knew her gardening stuff. It's just, again, I don't always have time to watch every detail of a gardening video, because I want information that I can use for the gardening I'm doing right now. I don't need the basic stuff. I want more specific stuff for me. But that might have been it. If it was a young woman, excuse me, she had pretty good information about that. I'm looking at my notes because I didn't want there to be a lot of dead space. I wanted to have things I wanted to talk about. So the video on legacy, I think it came to me because we're seeing so many strange things being passed on, and we're seeing a rise of just weirdness. Looks like Australia is reinstating penal rules. Goodness gracious. English food, mashed peas and blood sausage. Yuck. Yeah, that, but fish and chips, I'm telling you, Earl's daughter, Shalom, haven't heard from you in a while. Fish and chips, it's just amazing food. I love it. And you cannot get fish and chips here anything like it is there, which is probably a good thing. because your food should be something that stands out, like Indian food and curry. It has, very specific flavors. And American hamburgers should taste like, American burgers. They shouldn't be made of tofu and should be fresh beef and so on. Uh, the fish and chips are just so yummy, and I would love to know how to make them authentically because I miss the flavor. The fish is crunchy, and the chips, the French fries are real bendy. Yorkshire pudding makes up for all questionable English food. I'll tell you what else is pretty good is bread pudding and raisin bread pudding. I made that from what's the name of that channel where they do the 1700s cooking? James and Son, something like that. I did a bread pudding that they had a recipe from, obviously comes from England, and that was really good. Okay, so legacy. Townsend's, that's the one. Townsend and Son, that's exactly right. They're leaving a legacy to the American culture of a really good channel on YouTube that's not offensive to anybody and has really, really cool tips. I appreciate their video on making their own oven and cooking in it. Yeah, we call them French fries, they call them chips. And then potato chips, which we call potato chips, they call crisps. It's kind of fun. It's all the same language, but right, we say we speak English, and yet the English we speak is not the English from England. It's the British English is completely different than the American English. We're actually speaking American. I love them. Lots of good content. Yeah, he puts out really quality stuff, and I really appreciate some of the information. Isaac says, Shalom, greetings from the hills of rural Massachusetts. Wow, Massachusetts used to be when it was founded, such a conservative state. Now it's so liberal. I think, Isaac, what do you think? I mean, limiting my net time, my Shalom depends on it, seriously, right? And I'm too busy to be able to spend long periods of time on the internet. And I say that, I mean, I do that for entertainment, but the entertainment stuff is not something that I want to be in depth about. Oh, wait, somebody said hi, Kate. Greetings from South Jersey. Shalom. Boston is a communist dump. Western Mass is a conservative refuge. Well, at least you've got some conservatism, right? There we go, yeah. But this legacy thing, like America for a long time, especially when I was young, the legacy was freedom and ruggedness and self-sufficiency and can-do attitude and very, very industrious. Coming from places like Massachusetts, where you get, John Adams, I think he lived there, and that Yankee Puritan hardworking ethic. That was America's legacy to the world, and it was that way a good long time. Homestead Tessie's here. Shalom. Wow. Her channel has grown so much. I'm really happy for her. Sam Adams as well. Exactly right. Tough-minded people fighting the British. This is a legacy from America. And now our legacy is getting weirder and weirder and weirder. Rioting in the streets. I listened to a radio show recently, and Pastor Joe had told me about some of this stuff, and then seen it myself online, where I might even have been Austin, a mayor of a city was going to stop prosecuting petty crime, petty theft up to $700, and then they instituted it, I think, in LA and San Francisco, maybe. You don't have to post bail. If you get arrested for these crimes, they don't really hold you. They're going to release you soon after. And so stores are having, I don't want to say gangs, groups. I think one of the stories I read was they estimated 80 people in a group, like several cars full of people. And they were wearing hoodies and sweats and like masks. Oh, you have to wear a mask, right? Because of the vaccination. And they just go to this store, and I think it might have been a Nordstrom's or a Kohl's or something like that, and they all get out at the same time and run inside with big black trash bags and just pull everything into the trash bag, jump back in the cars, and leave. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars of stolen property from these businesses, and yet the legal system there will not prosecute that crime. Wow, born in Concord, a mile from the battlefields, I left west of there. Boston literally flies the Chinese flag outside the state house. That is so crazy. And Harvard now has a medical wing, and it's Chinese sponsored. The Chinese are paying for this public health organization at Harvard, something Chan. I mean, it is, yeah, you're right. It's very, very communist. Okay, so let me read some of this. East End of Long Island has always been conservative, but in recent years have been overrun by liberals fleeing New York City. They come to get away, and they turn this area into the very thing they are fleeing. Exactly right. LA is wild. The looting is crazy. Greetings and salutations from the Ozarks. Blessings to all. So what does the Bible say about stealing? Hey, North Idaho, new, welcome. What does the Bible say about stealing? Thou shalt not steal. It's really plain. It's very simple. It's one of the 10 Commandments. And it's generally because theft causes bad feelings between people. If someone steals something I have, I'm going to be pretty mad at them. And if someone steals regularly, they get used to stealing and not working to get things. All thieves should be forced to repay sevenfold, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure believers stealing from other believers have to repay 4 or 5-fold. But we're talking about, there are cultures where stealing is okay. There were Native American cultures where if you stole horses from somebody, it was actually a badge of honor. And these gangs that are stealing from businesses in California, yes, I know Nordstrom has millions and millions of dollars, but Nordstrom also has people who work for them. And if you trash that whole business, everyone who works for them now is out of a job. Okay, let's look at some of this. San Francisco is the worst. I know people living there and they still won't leave. They could sell their home for millions and move anywhere. In Syria, you will get your hand cut off for stealing. Steve Wilson, one old man, and Yah from the Pacific Northwest. Shalom. There's Forrest Dog. Shalom. Right. I mean, there are places, Muslim countries, you steal, they cut your hand off. It makes it a lot harder to steal, but it also makes it a lot harder for you to provide yourself with a living. But it's not right. Stealing is despicable. Biblically, they are to repay 7 times. Give me the verse that says that, y'all, because I'm telling you, I think it's 5. Find that for me if you don't mind. So that was one thing I was saying about the legacy that America is turning into. We're turning into a weak. Look at Afghanistan. We lost to them. Look at Biden. Our president is, mumbling and can hardly form 2 sentences and is just being ushered around by the people. Handlers, if he starts getting off on a topic, they just kind of rush him off the stage. Our legacy right now is weakness, ineffectiveness, super government control, and super government incompetency. I think they asked the press secretary recently why there's this looting, and she said the basis is the pandemic. The pandemic is causing the looting. And I thought, okay, let's look at that. I guess possibly you could say that if the pandemic is making people not have jobs, and so they're looting in order to provide for their family. But really, the looting is just because those states, California has said, we're not going to arrest you for that. You can steal up to like $700, $1,000. We're not going to prosecute you. And if you go over that and we do catch you, we put you in jail, you don't have to post a bail, and we're going to release you. Hey, Homestead Tessie said she really enjoys the talk. Thank you so much, Homestead Tessie. She's got really, really good tips on frugal living, by the way. If you haven't seen any of her videos, she has very good content too, very positive and very frugal. Good recipes and stuff like that. Proverbs 6:31. All right, somebody quote that thing in there. Still here, just running back and forth, cooking dinner and folding clothes. Chores are never done. Well, that's the truth, especially on a homestead. There's a whole list. They do a lot worse than cut off a hand if you cross the border illegally, too. Oh, there's Mike Liparachi. Greetings. Good guy, Mike. Used to live out there in New York, too. I would rather starve before I would ever steal. We need to value the law of the Lord more than our life. And I also think if you're following the law, the Father's going to help you as long as you're doing your part. Find food, have food. I'm not saying he's going to make it fall in your lap, but he's going to give you opportunity to get it. And if you did today's Torah portion, it was all about Joseph. Joseph, he didn't get handed the food. He got sold into slavery, and then he was put in prison for 2 years, but he kept his faith, and he was a good prisoner, earned people's respect, and also interpreting dreams for people, and Yahweh put him in a position to control all the food in Egypt. But if he is caught, he will pay sevenfold. He will give all the goods of his house. Nice. Nice. Thank you for posting that. I will correct my own numbers. This is a sign of our modern culture. In my lifetime, I've never seen such self-righteous, self-serving in the time of a national until now. Right. It's generations of kids brought up to be told they're special without doing anything, who aren't forced to scrabble to make ends meet. The TV and programs and online stuff is all about, do whatever you want and please yourself, and I'm gonna do me, and just, all of that. And it's what they've grown up with. Also, without fathers in the house, so many households in America don't have fathers. And it's one of the most important things in the development of people is to have a father and a mother. And they're married, even if they're not great parents, it's better than one parent raising them. And I've seen myself so many single moms who are doing wrong by their sons, bringing them up to be, in essence, a woman with male hormones, like teaching him all the womanly ways on how to be and not the manly ways on how to be. And so we get all these weak males who don't know how and don't know what it means to be a man. Let's see, what did ED say? Well said. I'm a moderator for the Patriot Nurse, and I just want to let you know YouTube removed 30 of her videos and have locked her out of her account for her opinion. All right, let me go back. You guys are making some excellent comments. Jen said, love these chats by Sister Kate. Well, thank you, Jen. Earl's daughter. Oh, yeah, okay, yes. ED, yes, her comment was great. 30 of her videos and have locked her out of her account for opinion on the vax. They are cracking down on us. Also, YouTube is not a government agency. They are a private organization, and so they have the right. And they tell us up front, you can do these things, you can't do these things. We're gonna slap your hand or your wrist or whatever if you say these things. So people know it beforehand. That's not me saying she shouldn't say that, because as an American citizen, you have a right to your opinion, but YouTube is not America. And so she can say her opinion in other areas too. She can go to Vimeo and I don't know, I haven't had to do it, but Spotify or whatever, and get her opinion out still. But I hear you. I mean, she's not the only one. She's not the only one who's getting dinged for putting their opinion out. Megan Ginger, I'm a sing-a-bong, and my 17-year-old son struggles. I'm relying on the Lord to fill in the gaps. One thing you can do, Morgan, is try to get him into male-oriented activities. And I know that's kind of a weird and a scary, uh, nothing can be counted on in these days, but in general, let me try to think. Because going to a gun range, you're going to see men there and they're going to be manly men, but it's not always guaranteed that you want an immature 17-year-old exposed to firearms that way. So let me think. Working on cars, right? If you can find like your local schools, some of them have the tech classes for auto mechanic, or in my son's case, we happened to have a neighbor who loved to work on cars. And so my son started to go over there and he would work on cars with his friends, and those guys all kind of taught each other guy stuff. Going fishing, radio stuff. There's a lot of ham operators and ham organizations that are male dominated. Volunteer fire departments, volunteering at a fire department, even if it's a paid department, some of them have cadet programs. A lot of males there doing man stuff, working on cars, learning how to put fires out. Civil Air Patrol, they're around Air Force guys who have retired or whatever, and they learn flying skills. That's kind of my advice to you there, is just think about male dominated kind of hobbies, skills, things like that, and try to get your son involved in those. Okay. Welfare state has destroyed the family. It's especially bad in the Black community. Coach TB. Excuse me, sorry, you're absolutely right. Excuse me. And I was thinking about that this week, and I was thinking about in the Israelite movement, I know a lot of the brothers are looking at having multiple wives, which is a whole nother. Fishing tournaments were fun when I was a boy. Mountain man getaways are good as well. I grew up with famous hunters and fishers. Exactly. A lot of states require a hunter safety class. That's a place you can see things. Single parenting is no joke. So let me get back to the brothers with the multiple wives, because it's a biblical concept. It is allowable. It is not commanded. And we get brothers who are finding this on their heart. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because we haven't seen it so much in our congregation. Everyone seems to be happy with having one wife. But I thought, this is Yahweh's way of replacing all those absent dads in the Black American community. Because with slavery, it kind of caused a breakdown of the family for Black Americans for, hundreds of years. And now we've got very, very strong Black females who reject the males, and we get, a Black culture with the males, with the rap music and the gang banging and the drugs and everything, and it's not good. But how are you going to teach a generation of young Black kids, males, how to be a father, a real father, a provider who stays home, who isn't into drugs, who works hard and follows the Lord? And that's this generation of brothers who, excuse me, who have these male children. And you'll see it in Brother Chris's live streams, how they talk about he and the other brothers, Brother David and I think it's Brother Antoine from House of Colette. Their children are their possession. They are very possess them in a good way of their children, and how they have each said, I am dedicated to raising my child to know Yahweh and his law and his way of life. And they talk about, especially Brother Chris, he normally is on a Shabbat evening, and he's not on because he's exhausted. He works so hard. He works on his property physically. He goes to a job, and then he comes home and he works more. And so I had this sort of idea that he is going to raise up. He's got more than one son, sons who understand what it is to have a father in the home, who's working hard for his family, who loves his family, his wives and his children. And those men are going to grow up different from the ones who have grown up in America in the last 75 years. There's J.S. Badger, Shalom. Civil Air Patrol was great back in the day. Great search and rescue training. There you go. Search and rescue training is another something that would be good for your 17-year-old son to do, to get him some skills. Raise a child in the ways of the Lord, and he will not depart from it. Right. And yet they're in a house, because the male is the one who's commanded in the word to teach his own children. So it's the men absent from the family that is a whole education that those children are not getting. And we see these children of wrath who are the result of that. My opinion. All right, let me see. The revolting man having 15 kids is doing a good job to bring many more strong men into the future. Exactly right. Yeah, these kids don't have family. They're brought up in their daycare centers or by their school system while their parents are working, and they come home and they're not getting the values, and they're not seeing that they are important. They're seeing their parents saying, no, my job's more important than you. I'm not going to spend hardly any time with you. Excuse me. I was in the ACF for 6 years and it did me the world of good. What's the ACF, brother? Excuse me. I'm drinking a tea. Sea Scouts and our Coast Guard Auxiliary is a good one. Yep. Okay. Maxim something, your stuff's in Russian. If you guys can see if that's a real human being or something, that might be a bot. The Russian person's input right there. So my intention, legacy-wise, Army Cadet Force. Yeah. There's another one. Maybe you guys could make those guys disappear, because I don't think they're anything good. So my legacy, I realized, is trying to teach people skills that are useful to them when I see them in person. I try to teach them. My videos are not purely instructional, but some of them are to encourage people to be smart, and to educate yourself, and to try things yourself and learn things yourself. Jen says she doesn't see the bot posts. That's kind of weird, because I do for sure. Thanks, Aid. He got one. Good job. And so what is the legacy you're going to leave? And what is the legacy your family handed down to you? Because I talked about things that my mom and my grandfather and other people have taught me over the years. And now I have those skills still and can teach them to others. And then some of you have said your family had a terrible legacy, but you've rejected it. And that's important. Just because you've got bad stuff happening in your ancestors doesn't mean you have to keep going on with it. Volunteering for the church. There's another suggestion. This person, Isaac, said, my aunt, 95, says that the one mistake in the greatest generation made was wanting their children to have a better life than they did. They did too good a job and began a string of spoiled generations. Our family talks about, I don't know where we heard this or saw this, that you have like a very successful generation, and so they spoil their kids and they're not very good, and then their kids are rotten, and then the next generation has to work really hard, and so they're really strong and good, and it's just sort of a cycle. All right. Shalom. Hey, Susan Bryant. I'm happy you're here too. All right. Okay. So that was a topic I wanted to talk about. And if you guys have anything else to say, I guess I don't have to do the Viking Berserker. We talked about Australia. So something that came up today, Viking, talking to some of the people in the congregation was, I mean, it's been a conspiracy theory for a very long time that there's some elite group and they control everything and they're evil and they're wicked and they're part of the reason the country's going downhill. And again, with me, I want to see proof of things. My husband sees a breakdown of people who build businesses, then the kids fail to maintain. Exactly right. Exactly right. And sometimes they do. The good thing about a bad childhood is that it ends, and then you can get on with your life. You have to succeed and thrive, because if you don't, then the bad guys win. And there's Westhold Forge. Hi. And so look what's happening in our news lately. I learned gardening and sewing from my grandmother and basic woodworking from my grandfather. I don't have kids to pass it on. We will happily share the knowledge with anyone who's interested. Look at what's happening in our news. Chris Cuomo was fired from CNN. Yay. I don't really like CNN. They had a very, very liberal slant, but they fired him. And it's because he was doing illegal things or unethical things to research people who might testify against his brother, who was a, inappropriate toucher in office as governor. Growing up poor builds a heck of a skill set, right? You learn to. I grew up poor too, at least for part of my life, and you become more self-reliant. You have to scrabble. That's just the long and short of growing up poor. Anyway, back to Chris Cuomo. He gets fired. And then we've got Ghislaine Maxwell's trial going on at the very same time, and Josh Duggar. Like literally in Arkansas, Duggars trial's going on. Up in New York, Ghislaine's trial's going on. And here's Chris getting fired. Chris Cuomo will get a spot on The View. Oh, they deserve it. They deserve each other. The Duggars, this is just a huge, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I might end up offending some people. I have not met them personally. I did not really watch their show. But I saw people like them in the Christian community who put a huge emphasis on having children. More than, even 5. One family we knew was on a very limited income, and they had, I think at the time, 7 children, maybe, and their idea was, we're just going to keep having them. And it makes the parents have to really be budget conscious. And the family that we knew didn't make a lot of money, and so they had to thrift and so on. And I had them come over once for lunch, and these kids, I think, that were there were maybe, I don't know, 8 and 6 and 5, similar ages to my kids. And I served chicken. And when I do chicken, it's not chicken sticks or strips or anything. It's chicken. I think I cooked chicken thighs with some kind of sauce, and I don't remember what else I cooked. Probably broccoli, steamed broccoli or something. And I put the chicken on these kids' plates, and my kids have been eating the same thing for a while, and these children did not know how to eat the chicken. And I'm like, don't you want to eat this? And they're like, yeah, no, they didn't. They weren't very confident, so they couldn't really tell me what was wrong. And when their mom came back, I said, this is regular food. This is chicken. Why did your children not eat it? And she told me, well, I still cut all their food up. I cut up even a 6-year-old, like an 8-year-old's food. She cuts it off the bone for them. And I thought, she's not really teaching them to be adults. And long story short, like later on, she was on her 11th child or something, and I could tell by posts on Facebook of her older child, she was probably abused by the husband. And I personally saw him being pretty physically, I won't say, well, let's just put it this way. He kicked one of his daughters repeatedly all the way across the parking lot. And so I thought, wow, this is weird. And then, the Duggars, they've got this very structured life. They've got these kids, and they have the children mentoring other children in the family because they can't get enough parent time, and so on and so on. And it's a problem with homeschooling Christians. You really shouldn't just have your kids only socialize with themselves, especially as your young men, and this is my opinion, are not able to socialize with females their own age who are not their sisters. Because these young men are going to be having feelings, very strong feelings, and if the parents don't address it, or if the parents, in a very Christian way, say, I'll turn it over to the Lord, and he'll explain to my son how he's going to get married and being attracted to other women, and how to think about what's happening in his own body, and to get himself under control and direct his energy. And I think Josh Duggar is a perfect example of that. And raised in a family with all these little kids. He's not a woman. He shouldn't be changing diapers and everything else. And he starts getting interested in females, and the only ones he's around all the time are his sisters. So I think that's what's going on there. And I think it's having gone too far one way. And then we get the Epstein and the Maxwell. And we all know the history there. That is a perfect example of our thoughts that the rich elites in our country are doing weird, wicked things. Well, they're proof of it. At least part of them are doing weird, wicked things. Oh, dinner's done. Time spending time with hubby. Have a blessed night. Much love. Thank you for stopping by, Biddy Boo. Appreciate it. You take care. And so we've got that going on. It's just those rich people. And then they said, I think I saw it maybe in the news, Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House 17 times while Bill Clinton was in his first 4 years of being president. 17 times. Hey, Shalom, Errol. Is anyone else kind of weirded out by that? He was there 17 times? Ugh. I just noticed you are live. Shalom, all CKOC. Epstein and Ghislaine and a lot of the New York jet setters and Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew and all those people. Weird. And the other side of that coin is, who is allowing their 12, 13, 14-year-old daughters to go be with these people in any shape or form? There is no way in the world that if my daughter had asked me, can I go hang out at this 40-year-old man's house when she's still in middle school, that I would have said okay to that. Right? Who is saying okay to that? It's a terrible legacy. It's a horrible thing happening in our country. And we aren't making it up. We're seeing it in our news. It's happening. Possibly gossip, but I've recently heard that our Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, had connections with Epstein too. Lolita expressed to Epstein's Island, right? We are not making that up. This is fact. This is being reported in the news. They're kidnapped or groomed and brainwashed for it. I believe kidnapped. We have lots of missing people. I believe that certainly could happen. I believe they can be groomed, absolutely. And that they can also be convinced, well, come here. I think a video on Epstein said that he would pay them, so they're being bribed. But a 17-year-old, the one who's there with Prince Andrew, she's not even in the country. I think she was in England in that picture, and there's no way I'd let my 17-year-old do that. Where the parents are. Right? And it's sex trafficking. So they are being kidnapped, and maybe their parents don't know where they are. And the other thing about people that young, they just don't understand. They don't have to be there, that they can leave. They can walk into a police station or somewhere and get help. Too many young folks have no adult supervision because both parents are too busy making money, and so the kids get themselves in a situation they can't control, and then bad things happen. I believe that's true too, Paul. So we have that. We have Epstein and Ghislaine right now in her trial and stuff coming out in there. We've got Josh Duggar. And then what was the other thing I mentioned? What other weird thing in the news here? Oh, Biden and the weak presidency and our government and our she is the worst press secretary ever. She just keeps putting out the party line. You can just tell by her look. She is not a nice person. And she just keeps spitting out, the what am I trying to say? The illness, the COVID is the reason people are stealing en masse in groups from businesses. That's just wrong. That's a breakdown of our civil government. That is a direct line from the laws in California being weakened. So who's the victim there? It's the business people who run those businesses, who buy those supplies and then are expecting to make a profit on it. And when it's stolen, they can't. I wouldn't even let my son stay over at a friend's home when he was young, so I'm surely not letting my little girl go anywhere. It's all instances where the parent traffics their own child. It's true, and it's evil. It's really evil. It's just wicked. And I know that's true. And it kind of touches on when I was talking about that guy over in Germany. There are wicked, horrible people who have children just to abuse them, either themselves or, like you said, oh, I've got this kid. I mean, Demi Moore even talked about her mom selling her to somebody because they were so poor. Like, ugh. I just no. That's a no on my book. Never I do something like that. But there are people who do it. They're evil and they're wicked. Smollett should get charged with a hate crime, right? Making up an entire story about being abused. Oh, Texas Tea, thank you. I didn't even know that thing was still active on there. That's really nice of you. Yeah, Jussie Smollett. I mean, gets all that press and everything. Made up story. Hello, Sergeant James. How are things in Hawaii? I'm sure the weather is absolutely lovely. Aid, are you still there? As it was in the days of Noah. Wow, that is a really good point, Randall Davidson, right? They were off the chain in the days of Noah, and we're seeing that come around. It really is quite terrible. Oh, Sergeant James, I thought you lived in Hawaii. Who am I thinking of? There's another. My bad. There he is. What have you got to say about England? Because Aid, the last time I think we spent any time alive, at least on my live stream, it was the knife situation over there in London and all the knifings going on. What is the latest over there? Lapete Masson. People are sick. What was going on in the days of Noah? Brad, all sorts of evil and wicked things. You can read about it in Genesis. Just lots of evil and wicked things. Continuously. What is your mug? Looks like ceramics. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's Polish pottery. And then I made 2 tiles. I painted them myself to match it. So in the winter, to keep things warm, I put them on the table and I set this on it. But yeah, it's a Polish pottery mug. I really think it's beautiful. I love blue. It's all ungodly, and it's only going to get worse. About all we have now, Brad. Do you still think that masks are necessary and actually work? I remember you were pro-mask last year too. But Tuba, good question. I am. Masks and hand washing when I hadn't gotten COVID yet, and so I was trying to not get it, and I think that does help. But I don't think it's necessary if you're in an area where COVID is very low and you don't have Omicron coming around or something similar. And at first it was reported Omicron was super serious. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, yes, we definitely need to go back to don't go anywhere, don't talk to anybody, stay inside, wash your hands, wait till it burns out, wait 2 weeks. Um, yeah, there you go. Knifing is still going on mostly in the big cities, but doesn't get reported in the paper so much these days. Do you think the vax is the mark? I don't. And here's why. In the word, the thing that offends the Father the most, and I'm not saying I know for a fact, because you all could probably argue pretty well for me that it might be. He's most concerned about false worship. He's most concerned about his people worshiping false gods in whatever way they want to be worshiped. I don't think the vax is something we're worshiping. I don't think any of us think, oh, it's a god and I should be bowing down to it and making offerings to it. Now, there is a pretty specific case, and I think my son's the one who brought it up to me, about Ahab. It's either Ahab or Ahaz, has a problem with his foot, and instead of coming to Yah first and saying, hey, please heal me, he goes to medical people first, and Yah sends a prophet to tell him, you're definitely going to die from that thing because you didn't come to me. You didn't believe I could heal you first. So that's kind of a precedent to where you should pray to Yah first for healing for things, and he can show it to you. But I also think because of modern medicine is there, that Yahweh can heal you by using modern medicine. I guess that makes sense. Like with my brain tumor, of course I asked for healing and I got it. It just happened to come through a neurosurgeon. But I don't think that neurosurgeon was God. I just think he had some skills that he could use to help me out. And Yahweh just lined it up in such a way that it could happen for me so quickly, and it did. But I don't think the vax is the mark because we haven't seen the 2 witnesses showing up. And right now you can buy or sell without it. And I think Israel coming out with a report that you can have natural immunity changes that whole playing field. Because in some countries, I think it's Germany right now, people who are unvaccinated are not allowed to go to the theater, but they said, but we make exception for those people who are recovered from COVID. Well, if you're recovered from COVID, Israel is reporting that you have immunity not only to the standard COVID, but you have immunity to all the variants as well. And so this is where it all kind of gets, it's your opinion, it's whatever you think, but I think we're probably immune. I really do, because Pastor and I both got COVID, a very mild form, but I think we probably have natural immunity. So I hope that answered your question. That's a lot of words. All right, let me go. I definitely think we believers should not be thinking that the vax is anything to do with God, because Yahweh is in control of this world. And it's a man-made illness. So excuse me, I think it's almost like something being from Rome. Like, it's not something that we should be super, super concerned about one way or the other, unless they start saying it is a god and you have to worship it somehow. The more a virus mutates, the weaker it is. Not necessarily tuba, sometimes they mutate up stronger. The vax is definitely suspicious with all the force behind it. Well, and the fact that they, the press wants to dramatize it. Oh, Omicron's super, super serious and nobody knows. And then they find out, no, it's not. There will be no doubt in your mind if it's the mark or not, is what I think, right? That's what I think too. Control mechanism, right? And that could be completely just power hungry people. The control mechanism, that in my mind, there's more an argument for it just being a control thing than a religious thing. I think the vax and COVID is leading to not being able to buy or sell unless you get it. Jess, I think people are pushing that way, but I think there's enough resistance against that it certainly hasn't happened yet. My doctor says that an N95 mask possibly more going to help, but cloth masks are just germ sponges. Paper ones aren't much better since they aren't really fit properly and are too porous. And your doctor's probably right, Paul. I wear an N95 when I go in public. And I know other people say it's just not going to help you one way or the other. I think we all, as adults, make up our own mind. The New York governor treats the vaccine like God and says that the scientists who come up with it were sent to us by God. Yeah, I don't believe that, Coach TB, because I've seen a video, and I think I posted it maybe on my YouTube channel, of a host of doctors saying it's very limited, that vaccine. It's only specific to the spike protein, and it doesn't work against any of the variants, and that's why you have all these booster shots. So I tend to think that makes the most amount of sense, and so I don't think the vax is a god. I thought Omicron was a transformer. Somebody made a hilarious comment, might have been on Instagram, that said Omicron came down from Magnetron because Decepticon built it with some other transformer. I mean, it was kind of funny. A nurse praised me on her knees for my M900 mask. I didn't know there was such a thing. Money is the governor's god. My wife is an ICU trauma nurse in a huge hospital chain, and most of the people that are coming to her are people that have had the vax. So do your research before you become part of it. Exactly right. I mean, there was a whole news story about people who got the vax and have serious side effects, and only Fox reported that. And again, I've never been convinced about that vaccination, and I'm not an anti-vaccination person. I've had lots of vaccines in my life. Yellow fever vaccines and tetanus. I've had multiple tetanus shots because I'm an outdoorsy person, and I scratch myself on nails and fences and all sorts of stuff. I've had gamma globulin. I've had, meningitis vaccinations, and never been sick with those things. So I'm glad I got those vaccinations. But this one, so fast and not much research, I don't trust it either. Do you think that more lockdowns are coming during the winter? PG Ginger, I think it's entirely possible. I think the media started to say Omicron, we don't know what's wrong with it, and some states started to shut down. And I think now that the news is reporting, well, it does seem to be mild, that they're going to have to back off from it. There's some scary things. You need to watch COVID Revealed. Excellent. Israel is a good study case, and Gibraltar also. Right. And the thing about Israel is they said they tested like 12,000 people. It wasn't just a little, we had 100 people and 98 of them, whatever. It was a lot of people. And Israel has a real interest in their public. Their religion and their nation are this way. So they don't want their populace sick like our nation does. They care about their population very, very much. And so I tend to trust what they said. Also, after Pastor and I got COVID, we haven't had COVID again. So people with vax get COVID again, because when it mutates, again, that spike protein thing is very specific. And so if it's mutated different, the vax doesn't work for them. And they can also still spread it. And I don't think Pastor and I spread it either, because we're over it. All the animals that went through the trials died. I've heard that before, Tuba. I agree with anti-mandates, and the other two should be personal choice. If you do or don't, it's personal responsibility for whatever choice you make. And there are states that are saying, like, you can't mandate here. I think Texas was one of them, right? Lone Star Living. If a crisis can be used by the powers that be to assume extraordinary powers, it would create a crisis in order to do so. Exactly right. It's a well-known, I don't know the word. It's a well-known idea. Create the crisis, come up with the solution, get more power. Okay. It's not called choking anymore. It's called throat complications or not throat compliance. It's the new science, right? I've seen Dr. Zelensky speak to a group of rabbis in Israel regarding the shots. I have not. Suze is in Texas, right? Didn't Governor, isn't it Abbott, say you can't mandate? Sheena. Hello, everyone. I'm from Oklahoma. Hello. The Nuremberg Code must be adhered to. Can't stay awake. Good night from Canada, everyone. God bless. Megan Ginger, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. It's called, that's it, Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. That's exactly right. It doesn't matter if you're pro or anti. Everyone has made up their mind at this point. I don't believe anything is going to change minds one way or the other. I think the thing that will change minds, Westhold, is if it suddenly got way more deadly. If suddenly COVID mutated and it wasn't just, well, we hear it's deadly, but it went to Ebola type morbidity. 75%, 80% of people who are catching it are dying from it. I think it would definitely change some people's minds on how they wanted to live their daily life. But because it's not serious, I think that's why, yeah, right now everyone's pretty tired of it and not real impressed. I will not get the jab here, there, not mandating it. Our governor isn't. Yeah, Oklahoma's pretty, what do you call it? Your laws are very good. Oklahomans don't tend to be imposed upon. The laws there seem very commonsensical, which is good. All right, let's see what we got. It's a must-see, and I urge you to watch it. Let me know if I can link it here. Just mention it again. Don't link it, Tuba, because I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know whether they're recommended or not. Did you say COVID revealed? You do have a good governor. All right. So we talked about that. We talked about legacy. We talked about Australia. Cuomo and Ghislaine. All right. So then I had one more topic on here I wanted to talk about, which I found fascinating. Happened to us personally, so I can talk about it. We went to visit Arkhaven. I know that Pastor's done a video or a couple on it. Trump's Dr. Vladimir Zelenko talks to Israeli politicians and health minister about the vaccine. People had their mind changed by discussion on social media. Right. All right. So I'm moving on. So we go to Arkhaven. Their leader wanted us to come out there because Pastor and I, we know a lot about Torah and we know a lot about homesteading and off-grid living. And so we went out there and we hadn't met his wife before. And be careful what you talk about. I will. And he was using these really big words in reference to her and what she's doing nowadays. And I hadn't met her, so I didn't know how to form an impression of that, because the words he was saying were very scientific and kind of above my knowledge I've had anatomy and physiology, but I was like, this I think is a step above what I know. And so I finally got to meet her, and she's a very lovely lady, and she started to explain what she was talking about. And again, still, she's a nurse and a naturopathic doctor. So whoop, she went right up above. So I kind of nodded and said, interesting, okay. And she was very interested in autism and trying to heal autistic children through nutrition. And so I came home from the trip, and she was such a reasonable human being. I thought, all right, I shouldn't just poo-poo it, and I shouldn't just dismiss it. So I went and I just entered autism, and I forget what the other word I put in there was. I think it was whey protein or something. And when I say whey, it's curds and whey. It's WHEY, which is the stuff. It's a powder that comes from the dairy, what do you call it? Dairy business. Dairy, words keep flying out of my head when I need them most. It's a byproduct of the dairy production. When you make milk and things like cheese and so on, you separate curds and whey, and then you can use the whey as a brine for the cheese, but when it's done, you normally throw it away. And so this whey, there's huge amounts of it produced in the United States, and so the bodybuilding companies said, we'll take that stuff and we'll powder it and we'll use it, and we'll it'll be something that people who are bodybuilding can take to build muscle. And that's how I knew of it. And I've made cheese from my own milk, goat's milk, and I use the whey as a brine for the cheese I made. So I know what it is. And I put in there whey, and I think autism. And it came up, a National Institute of Health.gov website talking about whey as a superfood. Whey as something that will heal, has successfully been shown in clinical trials to heal HIV, cancer. It's antimicrobial, and it had several other words that I don't remember. I don't remember saying antiviral, but other words in there. And then one of those big words she used, glutathione something. And it is a byproduct of whey, and it is what fights microbes and HIV and blah, blah. And I thought, how coincidental, how interesting that we go to a place with believers that they are talking about these things. Excuse me. And I come home and research it, and it's something that every Israelite probably knows something about, because once you start walking this walk, it becomes very apparent that Israelites kept flocks. They were ranchers, quote unquote. They were herders, and people like Jacob, who's keeps a flock, is more righteous than his brother Esau, who's a hunter, and so on. And homesteaders in general. Even if you're not an Israelite, homesteaders and off-gridders in general are into the flock thing. We're into producing our own food, and one way you're going to get milk and cheese and everything else is to have your own dairy animals. There it is, glutathione. That's right. I work for a health coach. There you go, glutathione. It is a byproduct of whey, right? So how marvelous, how amazing is it that the Father's plan for his people it's a requirement, is animals that produce this superfood. Sheep, goats, cattle. These are the animals that the Israelite believers were, traveling with all the time. Their flocks, they had to have them because it's the clean food they can eat, and they were also, some of them being used for sacrifices by the priests and so on, offerings. And is this a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think it's a coincidence that there are homesteaders and believers all over the country who are flocking up, as I like to say. And that we've got, little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet eating her curds and whey. Well, she's sitting there having superfood, having really good immunity because her family has a cow or a sheep or something, and she's having this thing for breakfast every day. To me, it's just amazing. It's astounding, because our walk into this whole homesteading world started with us wanting llamas. We didn't start out wanting goats or sheep or cattle. We started out with llamas because we wanted an animal that would produce, wool, and also be big enough to protect, say if you had a flock of sheep or something, llamas are big enough to do that. So we looked at llamas and quickly said, no, man, they're way too big. You have to have all this fencing. We can't do that. We're not ready. So we just downsized our desire and came up with this clean animal before we even were walking clean. And now we find out that all of us have this superfood producer right there on our little homesteads, and you can milk sheep as well as goats. Oxalates are an issue too, but I found it's not if I grow my own organic. I push boundaries, but not sure I could pull off a goat or a cow in my apartment until I have the space. I'm trying to learn fermenting and make bone broth. Exactly. Hey, Susan, if you're in an apartment, what you can try to do is see if there's a community supported farm somewhere near you and buy into the raw milk, the cow, excuse me, or find an organic, a place like Brahms in our area might have organic milk because it's going to have what you need in it and you don't have to grow it yourself. But I just found that fascinating. And that's not the only superfood that's around homesteads. The amaranth, it's called pigweed. Can you drink sheep milk? Absolutely, Texas tea. You can make butter from sheep milk. You can make cheese from sheep milk. Llamas are a nightmare. They used to live next to us and they constantly broke through or jumped over their fence. Yeah, they're huge. There is a dairy close by. I need to check into it. If it's a commercial dairy, they can't sell that milk normally just to anybody who walks in the door. But if it's like a hobby farm or something along those lines, they might sell the milk. Or an organic farm. Sometimes they're small enough that they don't have the same rules. But there's a field. I mean, anyone who has cows probably has amaranth in their field. It's just one of those things that grows wild. It's sometimes called pigweed. Amaranth is one of those super healthy old school grains that have been around for thousands of years, and they're weeds in America. It's just the Father's hand is everywhere and his blessings are everywhere, especially for if the people, you're one of those people who's listening and doing. I've tried milking sheep, there was in it. Well, you kind of have to train them, right? You kind of have to teach them that they're going to be milked. They're not going to naturally know. One of my dad's llamas died because my dad marked the wrong mother and it failed to get its colostrum. That's a shame. Amen, said Lady Smith. Amen. You have to buy a dairy. We have dairy here that sells it. Yes, Texas, I have sheep. There was a dairy close by. Okay, there's the llamas coming. We have so many heavy metals in us, it's unreal. Important things, patience and kindness, giving someone a job they can do, they develop dignity and self-worth. I agree, Aledwin Mayer. I think there's a lot of approaches, and I think that's definitely one of them. Right, and we do have a lot of heavy metals, especially, I think I read an article by a journalist who flew a lot, and airplanes have chemicals on them, and he went and got himself checked, and he had a bunch of chemicals that he had picked up from flying on the airplanes. So it depends on where you are and what you're doing. We live off-grid for many, many reasons, and we like to be outdoors and away from heavy metals. I had wild mustard come up in my garden bed this year on its own. I'm letting it grow. I have mustard. My goats ate a bunch of it, but I also, the picture that is, where did I put that picture? On Instagram about this live stream is a plastic kind of box thing over top of turnips that I planted in the orchard that are growing. Okay. I'd cry too, Nunu. That's a lot of money and effort. What you eat to that store-bought stuff is poison. And you do your best. You do what you can. We do eat a lot of the stuff we grow, the greens. We have potatoes. The goats just ate most of the onions, but I had onions from the garden. I grew carrots this year. I've got a whole bag of broccoli I grew last year that's still in the freezer. So we're trying. We're definitely trying. All right, y'all. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for the donation. It was good. Thanks for all the thumbs up. Appreciate it. I have to go because I only have 15% left on my phone. So that's another side effect of off-grid living. The lighting, the battery, keeps me from yakking online for too long, helps me get ready to go settle down. I got a busy day tomorrow. I've got to work on a chicken coop. We had a possum get in a coop and kill one of my chicks the other night, just around dusk, which I normally assume the birds are going to be safe when I go in there to shut them up at night. Well, it couldn't have been more than a half an hour after the sun went down that I went out to shut them up, and there was a possum in there nomming on the upper half of a chick. He'd already eaten the bottom half of the poor thing. And so I went out the next day and I looked at the coop because it's got a back door that we can shut and a front door that we can shut. And I was thinking, how are these guys? No, he escaped out of it. That's how I looked. And the soffits on my coop are not finished. So I'm going to go nail some boards over those tomorrow so we don't have any more visitors going up into the coop or escaping out of it. And so then I only have to worry about the front door and the back door. So that's my main chore for tomorrow. And I think the weather will be all right too. We had a beautiful weather this week. Pastor and I were able to get a lot done. But once the weather turns cold, I'm not as motivated to get outside and do those outside projects. So I need to say goodnight to you all. Thank you for showing up. Totally appreciate it. Thank you for commenting on videos on my YouTube channel and also on the Instagram. I appreciate all y'all. All right. Bless you. Good night. Shalom. You're welcome. You're welcome. Love chickens, love treats that come. Yeah, chickens are fun. Jim Oderman. You're welcome. Thank you for a fabulous live chat. Thank you. From Lower Bama. Jen, 6 to 10 inches of snow. Too much fun. Texas tea. Shalom, 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 you guys. Shalom. Bless you. Well, that was a pretty